Welcome, everyone, to the Heal Yourself, Heal the Earth conference, where you will receive inspiration and practical tips to uplevel your path of personal and planetary healing. I'm your host, Monique Challis, and today I'm really excited because we are speaking with Dr. Tayria Ward. Tayria has a PhD in depth psychology and has worked intensively with her own and other people's dreams for more than 40 years. She's been an avid student of Indigenous ways of knowing and being for nearly 20 years. And Tayria also teaches a 12-month online course entitled Awakening the Ancient Ways. Currently, she has a private practice specializing in dream analysis based in North Carolina. Welcome, Tayria. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Monique. I'm so impressed with what you're putting together here, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. It's just so wonderful to have you here. And I love the title of your talk, which is Reclaiming Your Indigenous Mind. Perhaps we could start with you defining for us what you mean by your Indigenous mind.
Well, I can describe it. A definition would be good. Maybe I should try to write one someday. But I will describe what I mean when I talk about the Indigenous mind. If you think of archaic people on this planet, you know, that before modernity set in, the way that people related to the earth and the cosmos, the way that they were related to the voices of the other than human world, the intelligence and wisdom of plants and rocks and stars and the waters and all of the other than human community of life that we are embedded in and a part of, and only just one tiny part of, you know, as a species. We used to have, and we still have in our makeup, in our DNA, an apparatus for being much more clearly in touch with the wisdom and intelligence of the other than human world. Not only that which is made of, you know, matter that's part of this earth, but the invisible realm, the realm of all the characters and beings that inhabit this realm that we can't see. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And I think that in modernity, we kind of forgot that, or decided that it wasn't so, to our own demise, clearly. So the Indigenous mind to me is the way that we are built in our most original equipment, DNA, genetic endowment, to receive intelligence from all of the presences, beings, life that is larger than the human. That mind can receive that information, can communicate with that style of knowing and being, and is much more clear about who we are as humans and what our place on this planet is. So I have long stories. I've written a whole dissertation on this topic. It was called Reawakening the Indigenous Sensibilities in the Western Psyche. So I have a lot to say on the subject, but I think that, it occurred to me this morning, if you think about a very modern character, like maybe a man who's very well educated in our Western way of knowing and thinking and being, sitting with an Indigenous elder who clearly they have different approaches to the whole world. And sometimes you will see, if you kind of do it in your imagination, you will see that there's a sort of a quiet knowingness about the Indigenous character. And often there's, you can see almost by contrast that as educated as we can be in our minds, there's almost like a childlikeness about that modern aspect of mind, which we have developed in the face of this other way of sensing and knowing and being in the world. And so it's that part of ourselves that we are still equipped with, but we have eradicated by sort of covering it up with this modern aspect of mind that's only a few centuries old. This other part of ourselves is ancient, and we're destroying even that aspect of mind by the way that we're have decided to conduct our human endeavors in the last few centuries. So,
wow, yes, with the sort of power over paradigm, and science is the way. If you can't prove it, it's not real.
right.
Right. Wow, there's so many ways I could go, but I'd love to ask you first about your own personal journey. Could you share with us kind of how your path led you to recover your indigenous mind?
Yes, I will. I'll try to give you an abbreviated version. Excuse me. Sometime in the early 90s, I was a minister in an interfaith community and very happy in my life. And I was getting ready to write a talk on ritual. And I happened to be in a bookstore. I lived in the Los Angeles area in California. And I was in a bookstore in Pasadena, and I saw that there was somebody who had written a book on ritual who was going to speak there that night. And so I decided to, that I had the evening open. I was writing a talk on this subject. I was actually looking for books on this subject. And so I thought, great, this is awesome. So I went to that meeting, and in my memory, it's so perfect in that the little lecture was downstairs in the Alexandria 2 bookstore in Pasadena. I'm sure it's not there anymore. And it was in this like cave-like little basement. It was all stone walls and a little bit dark and a little bit musty smell, that sort of really earthy smell. And then in walks this guy, and his name is Malidoma Somé. And do you know Malidoma?
I do.
Yeah, many people have know of him. And this was in the early part of his work in the Western world. So he's an elder who came over to the Western world at the direction of his ancestors to try to help the Western world to understand what the indigenous person is about and what the indigenous ways of knowing are about. And he's been very helpful, very successful over the last decades, but this was early part. So in walks this guy, sits down, starts talking, and I fell into a state of consciousness that I don't even know what he said. I just know what was awakened in me. It was something so richly, deeply earthy, and it didn't have words. It had sensations, and they were mostly in the heart. And it was almost like I could smell the whole world differently. It was like there was all their senses that were being activated. And when I drove home that night, the words came to me. I picked up his book certainly and had a few words with him that were lovely. But I heard the words interiorly that the indigenous person inside of me had just awakened. Wow. And I'd never heard of such a thing. I mean, I had no concept, no vocabulary for such things, but that's how it came to me. I later read somewhere in his writing that he says we all have an indigenous person inside of us. And that part is normally dormant. I mean, has become dormant in the Western psyche and the Western consciousness. So it was in the years following that event, it was kind of a slow process until it wasn't, until it was a dramatically fast process, that my whole life started getting dismantled. It sort of began, and it wasn't directly related to this, but in retrospect, I could see it was absolutely related to this. It was like that indigenous person was awake and looking around my life and saying, no, I can't live in this, this construct. This is I'll die here. And I didn't want that part to die. So I ended up resigning from the ministry. My marriage ended. So many dramatic things happened in my life that were unforeseen and unwanted. And, but I eventually understood that it was the dismantling of my whole Western persona and way of knowing and being, until I got to a place where I actually had a a serious nervous breakdown, but it was the breakdown of everything that I thought I had known and who I thought I was. And there was still somebody there. It's like, who's this person? And I started to realize it's my original sort of makeup. It's, you know, there's something that survives here, and it doesn't connect well with the outer world quite yet because it has new skills to learn. It's almost like I had to start all over with reestablishing my connection to the modern world because something had happened. So hopefully it doesn't have to be that dramatic when you awaken the Indigenous person inside of you. It just happened to be my journey, but it was that sort of other aspect of mind and knowing and being that was reviving and was suddenly as clear to me as anything, that it was so important and so valuable and so timely, and that we, in whatever means we can find, need to awaken that aspect of the self before we destroy the possibility of our continuance on the planet as a viable species and a viable presence here, not a destructive one, not an arrogant human-centered one, but one that is part of this community of life. So there's a sort of a dramatic story for you. And like I said, I don't think it has to be that dramatic. You know, I've worked with a lot of people in the decades since then, and it you know, it can be a really exciting and fascinating and heartwarming and beautiful process to go into that recovery, the reclamation of the Indigenous mind.
Do you have any practical tips or tools or practices that you would recommend for someone wanting to go down that path and reclaim their Indigenous mind?
Yes, I would say, you know, the two of them come to mind when you ask that. The first one is listen to your dreams. You know, it's kind of interesting if you think about when we're in our dreams, we hear things, right? We hear words, sounds, whatever. We see things, but we're not seeing them with our physical eyes or physical ears, where we can hear and see and sense things, not with our physical body, but there's this other body that is also us, that sees and hears actually more acutely and more through many more dimensions than just our physical apparatus. So that kind of lets you know that there's a whole other being inside of us that sees, hears, smells, tastes, has its life, that isn't the outward waking persona that we've developed. And so, so listening to the dreams is not just a cute little exercise. It's like, it's a recovery of the actual dreaming body that is the subtle body of ourselves and of the earth, and our connection to all the subtle body of the earth, that helps us go into what the Aborigines call the dream time, which is a whole ontological landscape and state of being and state of awareness. And it's like the Western mind now has sort of eradicated our connection to that. But so the practice of reawakening your connection to the dream life and to your dreaming body and to the dreaming body of the earth itself is dreaming. I remember when seeing an interview with Carl Jung after he'd gone to Africa, and he asked the African fellow, the Laban, who was a shaman in the African village, he asked him, what do they do with their dreams? Because Jung, of course, was so interested in dreams. And he said the Laban started crying, and he said, we used to conduct our lives completely by the dreams. And he was weeping, and he said, when the white man came, the dreams stopped.
Oh.
And I think that to me, the image I get is that power of sort of solar consciousness. And it's almost like the dreaming is that sort of, if you think of the sort of wet, dewy world, and the solar consciousness just dries it up, just like it's not even there anymore. You can't access it. So the fact that they had been colonized or invaded by the white colonizers, their dreaming stopped. So Jung was deeply impressed with that story. And so the recovery of our dreaming self is one of the main things. And the other main thing is finding time to connect with nature. And not all of us can get out in the woods every day, but we all can, be next to a tree or a plant, or even just sit on our porch and watch the colors of the sky change, at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. Just put down all the apparatus, even books and magazines and, certainly all the technical things, and be with what comes into the senses, what comes into our thinking when we're just kind of alone for a moment in nature. I recommend finding a sit spot that is very sacred to you, that is your place in nature, and be there, even if you can only do it 5 minutes twice a week, preferably 15 minutes once a day, but no matter what, to find that place where you just are opening yourself to the natural world, because all of that intelligence is ready to come in and start talking if we'll just start listening.
Wow.
So those would be two main things. There are other ways too.
I love the sit spot, because when you do that continuously, you get in tune with the cycles, and you see the changes with the seasons, and you start to know the birds, all the animals that frequent, and you can recognize them. I do, and the trees, and they start to talk to you, and it's wonderful. I love that practice. And the dream time, yes, that's great. Sometimes when you have a dream and you feel like you've traveled, is that your dreaming body has actually gone somewhere? Like you wake up tired? Is that what's going on?
In my understanding, yes, that there is a whole landscape in the dreams. I have met people in this world that I had met in that world before, and we both recognize it.
Wow.
That can happen, and that has happened. Even a young man in Australia was telling me he had come to my house out here when I lived on the mountain. He described the house. He described the woman standing on the porch, which is my daughter, an exact description. The steps up to my, the entry to the house. The landscape. He had been there, and we've never met in person. But there, I've had that, and other times when you recognize, oh, right. And sometimes when you know someone, you just meet somebody and you think, how do I know you? Consider that might be something that has happened, that you know each other in this other dimension. It's a whole other dimension of our being that, because it won't go on our technological equipment, people decide it isn't really there. I don't know how we ignore it.
Wow. So we can get valuable information, maybe solutions, do you think, to problems from our dreaming time?
Oh my gosh, I just get a rush of energy when you say that. Einstein's theory of relativity came to him in a dream. Wow. A lot of the great composers, their music came to them in dreams. Some of the most, powerful, moving musicians will say that their dreams gave them the themes of the music that they then wrote, sometimes in a full package, the whole arrangement and everything. So, a lot of, I remember seeing a little video on YouTube of a little boy who learned an instrument. I think it was the violin, and nobody taught him, and he was like a master. And he said, my grandpa teaches me that in the dreams. So in the dreams, he was getting the instructions. Everybody was like, how do you do this? And it was his grandfather in his dreaming. So, yes, a lot of information comes, and often I can be stewing about something for a long time. When I have a dream about it, it's like clear as day. Then I get it. It's like the guidance that comes through the dreams can be just profoundly helpful and important.
How can we connect more with our dreams? Because a lot of people say they can't remember, or they don't feel they do dream. Is there anything they can do to start remembering and start connecting more?
Yes, it's like anything. It's like you go to the gym and you don't have the muscles, and then you keep building, and then you get the muscles. And so it's like almost like, I think it's like building a muscle to connect with your dreaming mind. So that would be like every night I take a little thing like this, a little pad, and I have a pen, And it's right next to my bed. Anywhere I go, even if I'm camping, I have that next to my bed so that I can take, sometimes even in the dark, I don't even wake myself up too much. I'll just roll over and write a few words so I can pull the dream back in the morning. But every night when you go to bed, if you look at that and tell your dreaming mind, you know, I want to connect with you. And then write down anything that comes, you know, and the thing to do is when you wake up, usually even me after 40 some years of this, you know, my mind goes straight to what I have to do after I get up, and I have to remind myself, no, wait a minute, stop. Where was I just now? You know, kind of look back to where you had just were instead of forward to what you're going to do when you put your feet on the floor. So take a minute when you wake up to recall and remember, and then get it in your mind. Then take a little note on it. And any dreams that you have, even if it's just a slight impression, write it in a dream journal. Even if you take a few notes on your pad later, as soon as you can, keep a nice dream journal and write your dreams down. And it's like building that muscle. You start to get it. On the other hand, some people just don't remember their dreams. They just don't, and they won't. And I would say, do not be discouraged about this, because we're always dreaming. The earth is dreaming. There's our whole dreaming dimension of the psyche. And you start to know it. It's that sort of in-between place, the place you go when you just take a break from what you're doing and look out the window and your mind goes into something and something else comes in, or some impression or some memory or all of that. You know, write those things down. Take note of those like you would of a dream. It's like we're always dreaming. That dreaming part of ourselves is always there. So if you don't have dreams of the night, do not be discouraged. You are a dreamer. That's who we are.
I was going to ask, or do daydreams count? So definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I was more educated by my daydreams looking out the window than I was by the teacher on the blackboard. You know, I don't remember what she was telling me, but I do remember what I was learning when I'd sometimes just look out the window and a whole flow of insight or understanding would just kind of come to me from the trees and from, you know, and it only takes a second, but the downloads are huge. So, yeah.
I like to look at the sea, just stare at the sea. There's something about the sea. And when you're in that kind of, you know, you're not thinking, that's when these insights can find the space to come in, when you're just kind of relaxed and you can just go. So that's wonderful. So daydreams, nighttime dreams, connecting with nature. Is there anything else you would recommend?
Well, you know, going a little bit further with the daydream thing, you know, I have sometimes, like, often when you're in the car, I think that your dreaming mind is kind of active because you're not so engaged outwardly. You know, you have this one thing to do, which is pay attention to the road, but often thoughts and memories and sensations and things come in. But I think treat those like dreams. So maybe you have a little recording device. I just have a little pen and paper. I know how to write without looking, so I can just take notes. But I would say take those seriously. And I've had insights on something I was going to write that came to me in the car, and I didn't write it down, and I couldn't get it back, just like you can't get a dream back. And I'd be so upset with myself. It's like, I know better than that, you know, to just think that when I get in my house, it's still going to be there. And it's not, and I can't get it back, just the way a dream fades. So, like, respect that when something comes to you and it feels important, to write it down, because as soon as you get out of that car, it could be gone, just the way a dream goes. So the dreaming mind is so valuable, and so pay attention, give it respect. And do I think it's a valuable service to your own life and a service to the world to do the writing it down and bringing it in. It's like bringing spirit into matter. So it's a way of connecting the worlds, bridging the worlds. That's the name of my retreat center, and my work is bridging the world. So, you know, just writing it down, bringing it in, finding a vocabulary and image for it is a creative act, and it bridges worlds.
I love that, bridging worlds, because I was going to say, where do you think this information comes from? You know, is it our ancestors? Is it our higher self? Is it collective, the collective unconscious? Where do you think the information comes from? I guess it could come from all of those places.
Absolutely. You know, all of those places and more, all of them and more.
More than we can conceive of, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? You know, some people identify, you know, archangels or whatever. I don't have any of that experience myself, you know, of really the identifying characters. I do know when guides are speaking to me, and I don't know, you know, I wish I knew their names, or sometimes I have a sense of, you know, of them. But so wherever it comes from, you get a different frequency or different levels. Sometimes it's just like your own personal unconscious that is really your own higher self, that it feels very familiar and personal. Sometimes it feels like something very transpersonal and other than you that is speaking. But yes, I think it comes from all those places. Here's a sweet little story I'll tell you. I was talking to my grandson the other day, and he spent the night, and I light a candle in the morning, just when I'm just doing my morning, sort of getting my coffee and doing a thing. And it's just a practice that I do. And so Stokely, my little grandson, is there, and he says, "What are you doing, Nana?" And I said, "I light the candle because I feel like it invites the angels. It tells them I'm awake and I'm ready to kind of engage." And you know, it was a way I could use to describe that, you know, that it, to me, it's inviting spirit into my waking world. And it's just a little ritual that I have. And so, I said, "Do you know what angels are?" And he said, "There's some in the picture in my bedroom." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "They're not just in the picture, they're around us. You know, this is my understanding anyway. And you can't see them, but you can feel them. And they're here to protect us and help us. And they sometimes do really kind and surprising things. But you don't see them, but you know them." And he said, "Sometimes when I go to school in the night," and he named his school, Farmstead School. He said, "There's a night school and a day school." And I thought, oh, he's remembering his dreaming body. You know, he says, "I go into the forest in my school in the night," and he said, "There are fairies there."
Oh.
And I said, "What do fairies look like?" And he said, "Sort of like moths."
Well,
he hasn't been taught this stuff. You know, it's just like, here's a 3-year-old. Children, I think, are very aware of the daytime and nighttime. He said, "There's 2 schools. There's my day school and my night school."
That's incredible. He's very tuned in.
Yeah, well, I think every child is. That's the thing. It's our original endowment, is this mind. And it gets eradicated so quickly by just overdeveloping the Western sort of rational thought system. And it's eradicating this other way of being and knowing that is a very dangerous operation. It is very sinister. So
yes, because it's separated us from the earth, which is allowing us to treat the earth the way we are and to put ourselves in this dangerous position that we are in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we objectify it and don't recognize that it is us. It's part of us. It's like killing our own bodies to be poisoning the earth. There's no difference. So yeah. So, but you know, my grandson, yeah, he's specially tuned in, but so is so are all of us. It's just that we're taught to forget really quickly, which didn't used to happen.
Right.
So we need to cover that.
So anyone can connect. You don't have to be a tribal person, because there's this whole issue around cultural appropriation, I think, you know, non-Indigenous people kind of adopting those types of practices. What would you say about that?
Well, you know, I think it really is a hot topic nowadays, because Indigenous people who have retained their practices and their ways of knowing and have their rituals, people like myself, a Western person who wants to reclaim or recover who I really am at this level, and it becomes, you know, distinctly aware of it, is searching for, how do I do that? So So they have something to offer. It becomes a tricky thing because like I'll just say this. When I was starting to realize that I was going to resign from the ministry, I told you that story a little earlier, something came into my head that said, I need a sweat lodge. Now, I'd barely even heard of a sweat lodge. I didn't even know anything about it. I didn't know anybody who had ever done one. And I just said, I need a sweat lodge. And then before, maybe a week's time, a neighbor of somebody said that they knew somebody in the San Fernando Valley that conducted sweat lodges. And I'd never heard of it. I said, can you connect me with this person? So I got to do a sweat lodge. And then when I was in the sweat lodge, I heard, I need a vision quest. I'd never even heard of a vision quest before. I mean, I don't know where these thoughts came from. And so I asked the person who conducted the sweat lodge if she knew of where I could find somebody who would lead me on a vision quest. She said, I can do that. So she took me out into the mountain and led me on a vision quest. Now, these things came from deep inside my own spirit. These did not come to me from some outer connection to something. It's something deep in me that was indigenous, that knows the ways. And so, I understand clearly indigenous persons who get concerned when white people adopt their practices. However, I have a strong belief that, for one thing, in past lives, nobody can tell me how many past lives I lived as an indigenous person, but I can sense it and I know it, and it's very clear and strong in me. And so, I feel like that indigenous person is very alive and well in me, and I don't sometimes appreciate an incarnated indigenous person saying I'm not one. In this particular lifetime, I was born in Kansas. I'm a white person born in Kansas. I get that. But the indigenous person inside of me is a very real intelligence and a very real person who has her life, who knows what to do. And I basically have designed my own vision quests. I was working with a Nigerian shaman, but I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a 10-day vision quest. This was how I was going to do it. It all came from inside of me, not outside of me through this Nigerian person. So I think listen to your own indigenous self. And also, if you think about it, I think we all should realize that it's not too many generations back, we're all indigenous, all our ancestors. So even if you're looking at just this incarnated person, all of our ancestors, not too many generations back, lived in an indigenous way. So it's in our DNA, it's in our soul memory, it's in our cellular memory, the living with the indigenous way. So to know that we all are indigenous, to respect that across, different cultures and ways, and to be very respectful. Also, you want to be very careful of the instant shaman kind of person,
Right.
did a sweat lodge and a vision quest, and now all of a sudden they're maybe taking people on a very dangerous operation, connecting them to parts of themselves in the world, or into experiences that they're just not psychologically ready for. So you want to be very careful who you're working with, and know the heart of that person. Where are they coming from in their heart? And know your own heart. Where are you coming from in your heart? Just 10 minutes before I got on this call with you, somebody called me and said she was looking for help for a friend who had done a vision quest on YouTube.
Okay.
I said, a vision quest on YouTube? She said, yeah. And she said her blood pressure's been high. She had a terrible experience. She doesn't know how to get herself back. And I thought, that's so dangerous. And so, I don't know, maybe those people are very well-meaning and know what they're doing, but somebody had a horrible experience of doing, and I've never, no person who really understands vision quests would think that's something you can do online.
Right.
I just don't understand how that happens. And this person was very damaged by it. So the woman was calling me, and I'm going to meet with them and sort of see if I can help her.
Right.
Yeah. So, it is a very tricky subject. Be very careful, but also recognize that we're all indigenous. And I don't appreciate, telling somebody else they're not indigenous just because they were born in Minnesota. It's just,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I can't say that.
As long as we're respectful and respectful of the power of these ceremonies and rituals, I think that's the main thing, because some of these traditions may have been oral traditions, and they need to, if they're going to be kept alive, they do need to be shared. But as you say, be respectful. That's amazing. Someone did a vision class on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. I can't even imagine. I don't think I even want to know exactly what that was about, but I just got that call just a few minutes before I connected with you right now. So yes, there are powers there, and the indigenous people who have done them for thousands of years have their very important ways of addressing the spirits, and it's really important that you do it correctly and that you're grounded yourself and that you know how to assimilate what you experience. So, have a lot of respect for doing it correctly and training yourself very correctly in how to do things if you're going to do them. I lead vision quests, but I was trained over 15 years from a variety of elders from a variety of the Lakota, also my African mentors, also some from the Huichol tradition, so I worked very hard to learn and understand what I was doing before I started leading them myself.
Right. So would you recommend finding a mentor if you're going to lead ceremonies? Or
don't ever lead one if you haven't done at least 10 years work on it. I mean,
right.
Really, don't even think about it. Just, I don't know, that number just came to me randomly, but something like that. I mean, do seriously do your work around it. Study with the people who know what they're doing. Sincerely dismantle your own Western sort of like how to market, how to make it, that kind of thing is going to interfere with your connection.
Right.
So
do your sit spot, connect with your dreaming, read, seek out mentors, and
be really humble in the face of these great powers.
Right.
Really humble. Yeah, the ego has no place in this operation. It needs to find its little sit spot over there in the corner while you do your work. The ego is a good little tool we have, but it's not the master of the situation. If it starts to step in there, it's going to interfere with your connection and the value of your work and also what you have to offer.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for addressing that. It is a sensitive topic, so thank you.
Yeah, it really is. It is a very important topic, and it needs to be really carefully, respectfully considered on all parts. All people on all sides of the question really need to consider each other. Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for the story about your grandson. That was really charming.
Isn't that dear? Yeah, that was just a few days ago. He said that. Yeah.
And I loved what you said about connecting with trees and rocks, even, because rocks have always talked to me. Can you speak more about the nature spirits? What do you know about them?
Well, it's interesting. I did a 10-day vision quest. The one that I referred to earlier was in California. This one was in North Carolina after I moved here in 2004. And I just knew I needed to ground my spirit here in this part of the country and, in this place that I was now going to call home. And I did a 10-day vision quest. And the idea came to me when I went to Shining Rock, which is a place that we just hiked to, a friend and I. And it was like something came out of the stone. I saw it and it said, do a 10-day vision quest here. I will take care of you. So do it here. And I remember that moment. It's as clear as if it happened yesterday. And I came home and I just happened to find a book on my shelf. I was looking for something else and I opened up a book. I think it was Joan Halifax's book on shamanism. And I opened it up right to that page and read this words that the spirits of the departed shaman enter the crystal rock. And from there, they instruct the living shaman. So it was like, okay, the spirits of the departed shaman went into that rock, and from there they instruct, somebody that they're inviting in, because that rock talked to me and it told me, and I got it. I told my friend, I'm coming back here. We're going to do I'm going to do a 10-day thing. And then I got that affirmation there. So it's like the departed ancestors, like this little rock is really important to me. I could tell you too much about it, and I won't do that right now, but it's like there is a spirit that is in this rock, and the more that I connect with that spirit, the stronger it gets, because it helps it incarnate as it helps me incarnate in my, it's a relationship. So we each are stronger because of it. I have rocks all here. This one I just got last week from Stonehenge. I asked it if it would come home with me, and it said that it would. It was, it was like a traveler. It was okay to do that. So, these are my people, my family here, some of these little rocks, and some of them, I just found them, and I know where they found them. And I know that they're bringing something back from the places that I found them. And always ask and be respectful and make an offering when you take it, like leave some kind of offering of your own to, reciprocate. So yes, I mean, I've had trees speak to me like in the dream language. I mean, like the way you hear in dreams. I had a tree once say to me, this was when I was doing a vision quest under my first 10-day vision quest, and I heard the words, "This is irritating me. Can you get it off?" And I thought, what in the world? Why did those words just come into my head? And so I looked all around where I had been sitting, and then I saw there was a branch that had been fallen from the top of the tree and was like over a lower branch, just sort of resting there. And it was irritating the tree, and it wanted me to get it off. I knew instantly that it was the tree asking me. I've been sitting there a few days. It's like, you could really help me with something here. And so I got it off, and I can't tell you the rush of energy and the gratitude that I felt from doing that. It was like it came not from inside of me, but from that tree to me. So these are living beings. Every little stone and leaf and tree and plant, the stars, they will speak to us. They see us. For us to imagine that, that we're the only living things with consciousness is such a pathology, such a delusion. I mean, it's seriously insane. So, So to connect with the spirits in nature is to connect with the living environment that we're part of. They want to help us. They want to admonish us. They want to teach us. They want to love on us. We give that back. So I could go on and on about this.
Oh, that was beautiful, because rocks have always spoken to me. And I remember once I found a little fossil, and I was so excited, and I asked, "Can I take you with me?" And it said, "No, this is my place, and please put me down so the water can't get to me." So and to kind of hide it. So that's what I did, and it was safe from the water because the water was coming in. And I was kind of shocked because I have so many rocks as well, rocks and shells. I always ask them. They just say, "Pick me up." And there aren't too many people I could tell that to, but.
Right, yeah. People kind of think you're crazy, but actually I think it's crazy not to think that can happen. So
exactly. And animals, how anyone could think animals are not conscious.
Right. Yeah. They absolutely know what's going on.
And the water and storms, trees, everything is alive.
Yeah. I mean, do we have time for me to tell one other little story?
Sure.
Okay, so here's one that I just remembered recently. My daughter found a little lizard. It was a beautiful little lizard. It was like shining blue, those ones that are just like really, really, really deeply shiny blue. And she caught it and she brought it in the house. And this is right after my ex-husband had moved out of the house. And my family was just traumatized because, we were split. We never imagined that this could happen to us, but it did. So my two daughters and I had this little lizard living on our counter for about, I don't know, maybe a week. We were feeding it, relating to it, and then finally we realized, this is cruel. You know, this lizard needs to live out there, not in here with us. But it had been there for maybe a week or so. And so my youngest daughter said, can we wait till Papa comes? Because I want Papa to see it. So he came over one afternoon and, you know, appropriately admired the lizard. And then we all went out on the patio and let the lizard loose. And we were all standing there just sort of as a family. And the sort of cognitive dissonance of, we're not a family anymore. He doesn't live here anymore. It started to make me feel like I went into a cold sweat and like my knees wouldn't hold me up. I thought I was going to faint. I was just like, there was something about the trauma there that was so in me that I thought, I'll cry, I'll faint, something will happen. That little lizard came back from where it had gone into the garden and stood next to me and put its little body right next to my foot like that. And I was standing looking out across the view, and it started looking in the same direction, put its body next to me and stayed there for a few minutes. And there was like an energy that came from that lizard into my body that completely strengthened me. My knees weren't shaking anymore. My head was clear. I wasn't going to cry. I was fine. And as soon as I was fine, the lizard took off and went up back. And that lizard knew exactly what was going on in our household, knew exactly what I was experiencing, knew what to do, and brought me back. I mean, I could almost cry every time I think about that one. I hadn't thought about it in a while. It came back to me recently. So
me too. I'm almost crying.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just sitting in a little cardboard box in our kitchen, you know, but somehow it had the whole story and had the medicine for me.
They are so much more aware than people give them credit for.
Absolutely.
Wow. What a gift. What a beautiful gift.
Yeah. 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 So for us to think that these creatures don't know, it's just us not knowing. You know, we need to recover our knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We so do. How do you think reclaiming our indigenous mind will heal ourselves and heal the earth? Because right now, you know, we're in a critical time. It's very chaotic. It's very polarized. It feels very intense a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. How do you think this will ease that?
Well, I think if we do the work, recover this other way of thinking, like Jung wrote a beautiful essay called Two Kinds of Thinking. He said there's one which he called directed thinking, which is rational thought, which is, you know, for a purpose, for a goal, for a focus. And he said that's really only a recent development in human thought. You know, it's in the human mind. And he talked about the earlier ways of thinking and knowing, which were more symbolic and mythological and so forth. Heidegger also wrote about it. He called it technological thinking. And he said that technological thinking was in danger of extinguishing this other aspect of mind that is so valuable. So I think if we start to revive the indigenous mind, I mean, that's one way of describing it, and put our directed thinking, technological thinking, where it belongs toward getting a few things done in our world, but recognize that there are so many other ways of opening ourselves to who we really are and what we actually can know, then we'll know what to do. We'll know exactly what to do. I mean, when you're in this other place, that there's that delusion that you can pour poison in the river and it's not gonna destroy all of us, you know, that's okay. That there's anything okay about that. I mean, it's insanity. It's pathological. You could take down the rainforests, you know, which are the lungs of our planet. It's like ripping out our own lungs, truly. I think if we can recognize what has happened, like Wangari Maathai, who was, I don't know if you know her, you know who?
I love her. Yeah. I love her.
Yeah, and she's, one of the ways that she used to say it is, it's like we got on the wrong bus. And she said, when you get on the wrong bus, what do? You stop the bus and get off. you go the other direction. And she was saying people are just too lazy to get off the bus, so they're going to where we don't want to be, which is in this destroyed earth. But, you know, so it's time to get off the bus, reclaim what we know, who we are, and take a radical turn, you know, like get off this bus, stop being so lazy and keep riding it. So, and if we do, I think we'll know what to do. We'll have all the solutions. They're all inside of us. We know exactly what to do. So I think we can create the technologies that are efficient and that are cooperative with the earth systems. We can recreate ourselves and our education, and you know, corporate entities will have to discover, you know, what they're about and what they shouldn't be about and all that. We can solve these problems. We totally have it in us to do that if we just reclaim this aspect of mind together.
That's beautiful. I watched a documentary about Wangari Maathai, and after that I started I could cry. Yeah. I started collecting acorns.
Oh,
Just, I mean, look at what she did. If you don't know who she is, she started the Greenbelt movement, and she planted millions of trees. Women planted them, and they just started by collecting the seeds from trees and just planted them on common land, which was being desecrated, and, you know, use their bodies to stop people coming in and cutting down these trees. Anyway, yeah, I feel very emotional when I think about her. So I thought, look at what she did. You know, this is the least I can do. So I have like 10 trees on my balcony. Yeah. And so even just, yeah, go ahead.
She just empowered, you know, the women who didn't realize they had any power in Africa.
Exactly.
By the thousands to take responsibility for what the sort of deforestation of the African plains, which was driving them all into poverty. And she just empowered all of them. She got put in jail for her troubles many times and beat up, but she just was back at it. I went to Africa with her.
You're kidding. Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had the experience of being there with her on she took us into the villages and found places for us to stay for a period of time where we could just be with the people there. She was really trying to bridge the Western world with their people. Yeah.
I remember in this documentary, you know, she was told by some man, I think, you need a diploma to plant a tree. And she just, you know, her manner was like, I don't think you need a diploma. And just all these women just started planting trees. It was just beautiful. That's amazing that you knew her.
Yeah, yeah.
And she won the Nobel Peace Prize.
She did. She was the first person that ever won the Nobel Peace Prize who was an advocate for Earth's, you know, for the Earth itself.
Right.
So she kind of broke through that whole model of, you know, what we really need to hold up as what it's going to take to create peace on Earth.
Yeah. So if we just follow her example, we'll be doing okay.
Yeah, she's quite a character. Yes.
Yes. Oh, wow, Tayria, this has just been so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your beautiful wisdom.
Oh, you're so welcome, Monique. It's such a delight to talk to you, and I'm so happy that you're on this path and doing this work and creating these opportunities for all of us to hear from each other and creating the dialogues that you're doing. I just think it's a brilliant thing to do. I really admire and respect you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And I know you have a beautiful gift to share with the audience. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
The Dream Symposium, isn't that the gift that I recommended? Yes. Every month, Jocelyn Mercado and I conduct a Dream Symposium where we get on a Zoom call, 1 o'clock on a Friday on 1 o'clock Eastern time, which is 6 o'clock generally in the UK and France, and 10 o'clock in Pacific time. So, you know, people are all around pretty much can join us, and even people in Australia and New Zealand, it's the middle of the night then, but they'll get a recording if you decide to come. and listen to the dreaming. But Indigenous people the world over get up in the morning and listen to each other's dreams, and that's how they know what's really happening in the world. You know, it's not the newspaper stories, but you know what's really happening in the dream time. And so we decided that we wanted to create these places, this dream village, where we can listen to each other's dreams, and people from all over the world come and tell their dreams. And it's amazing the similarities and the themes that arise, and the intelligence and the wisdom that we receive together, and just the sort of strengthening of that muscle of being in touch with the dreaming and the collective dreaming. And so we don't do personal dream analysis. We listen to the collective voice in the dream. So we do this once a month, and it's free. And so if you go to my website, taryaward.com, that's TAYRIAWARD.com, or Jocelyn Mercado's Sacred Planet. I think it's Sacred. We are. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll put the link under the video so people can just click on it and sign up.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a Dream Symposium page on both of our websites, and you're welcome to come. We would love to have you join us. And then there's a Global Dream Village that is a site that you can go to, and people in between the symposiums share their dreams and thoughts with each other. So this is our love offering to the dreaming body of the earth. So come join us and tell us your dreams and listen to the dreams of your fellow humans.
And I can personally tell you that it is amazing. And the way Tayria pulls out the collective themes, it is mind-blowing in the best possible way. And every month we think it can't get more amazing, and then it does get more amazing. So I really encourage everyone to sign up for the Dream Symposium. And thank you so much for creating it and for continuing with it and offering this to everyone. It's so important.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So
before we end or complete for today, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think you've been so beautiful in sort of leading us through all of this landscape of, I didn't know exactly what we would talk about, and I just loved kind of what happened. So I feel complete with that. If anyone would like to talk to me about their dreams or do private dream analysis, you can reach me through my website, taryaward.com. There's a place to connect with me. You can get on my mailing list or email me, and I do private sessions, one-on-one through Zoom, Skype, or in person if you're in the Asheville area in North Carolina. And so I can help you with some dream analysis or listening to the dreaming body. You know, it doesn't have to be dreams of the night, but so I do private work, and if you get on my mailing list, you'll find out when I'm doing retreats or vision quests or other opportunities to do the work together.
Okay, great. So I'll put your website on the page as well underneath the video so people can easily click on that and find you if they want to go deeper. Well, thank you so much for your time and all this beautiful wisdom and your beautiful stories. I've really enjoyed it.
You're so welcome. And if anybody has any responses or thoughts or questions, please feel free to email me. I love hearing from you. So yeah, I want to open that channel too.
Okay, great. That's so generous of you. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.